I kind of just, pushed through it. I realized that I can change it as a child. At that time, I can change my circumstance. And so I just positioned myself to just keep going, but still burying the impacts and the effects of what that leaving really meant in my life. So I am only now as an adult confronting what those impacts are and, trying to deal with it head on.
Right. So what were some of the impacts, because the leaving of a parent is one thing. Then the leaving through death is another. And then, of course, you're now a parent and a child is leaving, right? And so we see that transition through different phases in the leaving process. So what was the impact?
So the overall impact of all the leaving going on, I would think, is this narrative that I wrote for myself that, nothing good lasts. And, if it's good, it's going to happen for a while and then it's going to go away. And I kind of just positioned myself to always expect that in my life. So even when great things happen, I am just sitting on the sidelines like, when is this going to end? What is going to happen? The impact of my parents leaving, especially my mom, she was like my safety net. And so that I felt like that was just ripped from under me. And now I felt like I was literally alone, even though I was positioned in the family. I felt like I was by myself and it was just me against the world. And not that I think that she didn't do what she thought was best, but as a child, that was really hard for me to just deal with at the time. So.
Absolutely. And so, the idea that you just said, that we all write a story or a script that goes along with the leaving. And your script might be different from my script, but nevertheless, it's there. It's an internal belief. And if we don't know that it actually exists, then we begin to manifest that all the time, right? So like you said, you see something good happening, but you're hunkering down and you're waiting and you're wondering, okay, when is it going to leave, right? So as you go through your process, then what are you doing to kind of undo that belief? Like, how do you actively now undo it where you actually can, in a very deep, substantial kind of way, say to yourself, well, I deserve good things and this one should last. Like, how are you doing that?
So earlier this year, it became heavy on my mind that, there was a lot of hidden stuff in my life that I'm very good at just pushing things on the side, right?
Yes.
And so I was like, I need to really confront some of these things. And I can't do it alone. Like, I'm a very spiritual person, but I also feel like God has gifted professionals with the ability to reach deep down and help us to bring out what we need to bring out. So I went on a journey to find a therapist and I found you. So it has been quite a journey. Speaking mainly to that inner child that is really hurt and wounded and that I projected that was fine all along, but she really wasn't. And just dealing with the hurts and the traumas that came along with my childhood and rewriting the narrative that I have previously written that, good things can happen, will happen, do happen, and I am deserving of it. So that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. So then the next part of your journey was really this loss of, or you said you came face to face with death, right?
Right.
What was that journey like?
So we were on a church picnic. It was a group of young people from our church. And on that day, we got into some difficulties in the water. And my best friend, who was then the love of my life, went to help. And he himself encountered difficulties and eventually drowned that day on the beach, along with two other friends of mine.
Wow. So you experience leaving abandonment. Now you experience leaving death.
Right.
And how does this look different in terms of its impact when you think about the two types of journeys? One is parent, one is now friend, boyfriend, lover kind of.
Right.
So how is it different in terms of the impact?
I somehow feel like I was more impacted by that because I had, once we met and our friendship started growing, I was now in my mind envisioning how I was going to correct the trauma and the hurt and the loneliness that I felt from my childhood. And so I built like a complete vision around this person and a life that I figured would have been the best life for me. And that day when he drowned, it's like everything just came crashing down. And I felt like that belief that I had from 9 years old was then cemented at that moment, that nothing good actually lasts, that good things come to an end at some point. And, even though I kept moving and I kept living with that same narrative throughout after that.
At the point when that happened, I always talk about the death wish, like that moment where it becomes too overwhelming, right? And it's that point where you're like, if this is what life is like, I don't want to live it. Is this where you make that wish?
Yes.
Okay.
In that very moment, I was like, Lord, take me. Or why not me? And I've asked that question. So it has been 20 years now. And I've probably asked that question every single year. Like, why wasn't it me? I was present. I was in the same water, in the same circumstances. Why not me? Why be left to deal with, the hurt and the loneliness and all of that comes along with it and the grief.
Right. Have you undone the death wish now?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about the process that you walked through in order to undo it.
So it was a process of first appreciating the role that he played in my life and being grateful for the fact that I had an opportunity to share space with this person and then forgiving him for leaving because actually was very upset that he left. I mean, it sounds selfish, but it's reality. And forgiving myself for being stuck in that place, not even though physically I'm moving on, mentally I am holding myself there and holding myself, captive to what I thought should have been the perfect life instead of making best what is now given to me.
Right. So you have two beautiful daughters. And when I introduced you, I said you were the wife of Jeanine Capron. So obviously that death was 20 years ago and you've moved on with life. So how did that even impact your marriage?
Subconsciously, I think that I've held my husband to, the standard that I had in this person. And they're two completely different people. Like if you put them in a room together, they're completely different. And that was really unfair of me to expect him to be that person because he's his own individual. And, I have to appreciate him for who he is and his uniqueness. And so I had to go through that journey of, apologizing to him for holding him to a standard that is unfair to him and getting into that space where I'm just appreciative of who he is as a person and being thankful for him as well.
Right.